Alright, picking up where we left off, we talked about how the Shang dynasty evolved from a tribe into a full dynasty, especially how Cheng Tang took down the Xia dynasty and founded the Shang. Next, let's keep going based on what the author says in the book about what happened after the Shang was established, like who the kings were over those 31 generations, how the throne passed down over more than 600 years, and if there's any clear consensus on it. The book doesn't dive super deep, it just gives a quick rundown of how the records of the grand historian, Shiji, describes the process. The book quotes this original passage. This is when Tang first settled in Bo, but later on, the capital might have moved around. According to the Shiji, Book of Songs, and Mencius, Tang's conquest started with Ge, then Wei, and Gu, followed by Kunwu, and finally taking down Jie. Mencius says Tang lived in Bo, right next to Ge. Later scholars figured Ge was the Ge township in Ningling County during the Han Dynasty, which is now in Ningling, Henan. So they thought Tang's Bo must be the Han-era Bo County, around modern Shangqiu, Xiayi, and Yongqing in Henan. But whether Ge was really in Ningling isn't backed by solid proof. Wei is today's Huaxian in Henan, and Gu is modern Fanxian in Shandong. But that's just because those places have names like Wei City and Gu City, we can't say for sure if it's accurate. Only Kunwu seems more reliable. It started in Puyang, then moved to Old Shu, as mentioned in the Zuo Zuan, for the 12th year of Duke Zhao and 17th year of Duke Ai. Jie's capital was Yangcheng, from the Shiban, and that seems trustworthy. Old Su is today's Suchang in Henan. Yangcheng is in modern Dingfeng County, Henan. The Shiji says Jie was defeated at Yuezhi Shu and fled to Mingtao. Yuezhi Shu is a mystery. Mingchao was probably near South Chao, which is today's Chao County in Anhui, where Jie was exiled and died. So Tang must have risen in Shanxi or northern Henan, expanding south into southern Henan, Shandong, and Anhui. This part is basically about how Tang step by step wiped out the Shi's allies and finally beat Shi Jie. You see, Tang started out in a place called Bo, but where exactly that was has always been up for debate historically. Some folks say it's around modern Shangqiu, Xiayi, and Yongqing in Hainan, but that's just a guess. We don't have rock-solid evidence. So Tang's starting point is a bit fuzzy. Next, Tang's first battle was against Ge, then Wei and Gu, and finally Kunwu. For Ge, there's this historical idea that it might be near today's Ningling County in Henan, but no direct proof. Wei and Gu are more interesting. Wei could be today's Huaxian in Henan, and Gu, some think it's Fanxian in Shandong. How'd they guess? Just because those spots have Wei and Gu in their old city names, so people figure maybe that's it. But we can't totally confirm. Then Kunwu is a bit more solid. It was originally in Puyang, later moved to Xuchang. That's pretty reliable since there are historical records of the move. And Jie's capital, Yangcheng, most people agree is today's Dingfeng County in Henan. By this point, you can see Tang's campaigns were expanding southward step by step. Starting from Shaanxi or northern Henan, he took out one enemy after another, finally getting to Jie. As for how Jie lost in the end, the Shiji says he was beaten at Yuezhi, fled to Mingtiao, and died there. Honestly, Yuezhi is pretty vague, no one's nailed down where it was historically, but Mingchao has more clues, probably near today's Chao County in Anhui. You can tell Tang's conquest route was north to south. He built a base in the north, then pushed into what's now Henan, Shandong, and Anhui, totally crushing the Shi dynasty. Even though these locations have some debates, looking at Tang's battle path, he gradually squeezed the Xia's power, expanding his turf until he destroyed their regime and set up the Shang. So this section is really about how Tang used his military might to push from north to south, solidifying his position and building his dynasty. Alright, let's keep reading. The Shang lasted 31 generations, ruling the world for over 600 years. What stood out about their system was the way the throne was inherited. The Shang inheritance seemed to be, when the eldest brother died, it passed to his full brothers one by one. Once those were done, it went back to the eldest brother's son. That's why Chungqiu Fanlu says, those who follow heaven model the Shang and perish as kings, establishing heirs with sons but favoring full brothers. Those who follow earth model the Sai and rule as kings, establishing heirs with grandsons but favoring the heir apparent. From this, we know the Shang customs were different from the Sai, while the Zhou was more like the Xia. Also, Shang law said, When the Lord dies, the officials take charge themselves, listening to the prime minister for 3 years. That's why old books say Gaozong lived in mourning seclusion, not speaking for 3 years. Looking at this, the Shang king's power wasn't totally absolute. It had some real limits. Let's break this down a bit. We mentioned before that Chun Chu Fan Lu was written by Dong Zhongshu. It's a super important collection of Confucian ideas from the Western Han, though some parts have been questioned for authenticity later on. Overall, it reflects how Confucian scholars back then understood and imagined ancient systems. In the book, it talks about the Shang inheritance method. It says, and the tone is kind of funny, like it seems to be, so the author isn't 100% sure, he's leaving room. The idea is that Shang throne inheritance wasn't straight father to son. Instead, after the eldest brother died, it went to his full brothers first, then back to the eldest son once the brothers were gone. Later, scholars call this brother succeeds brother, then back to the son mode. Basically, brothers take turns ruling, then it shifts to the nephew's generation. This actually lines up with the Shiji, Xianbinji, like how Cheng Tang passed to Tating, but Tating died early. So it went to Weibing and Zhonggren, then to Taijia. That's different from the usual one-line, father to son we think of. It feels unique. Plus, it says Shang law. When the Lord dies, officials take charge, listening to the prime minister for 3 years. Take charge themselves means the officials handle everything together under the prime minister. What's the prime minister? In Shang times, that's like the top minister handling national affairs. The 3 years ties into ancient mourning rituals. We know the ancients had 3 years of mourning, especially for parents or rulers, as a big show of respect. So this system isn't just about power, it's got cultural vibes around rights too. This setup shows one thing. After a king dies, the new one doesn't jump right in and start calling shots. Instead, the government runs under the prime minister and officials for 3 years. Think of it as a transition period, maybe to buffer if the new king is young or things are unstable. Then there's Gaozong and mourning seclusion, not speaking for 3 years. Mourning seclusion is a fancy term for rulers during mourning, staying shut in, not handling business. Not speaking for 3 years means Gaozong didn't deal with politics for a full 3 years while mourning. That's rare historically for a ruler. 3 years off is basically a political vacuum. How'd the country run? Just the prime minister and officials holding it down. This is in the Book of Documents, Gaozong Rongri, saying Gaozong had a rough start to his reign, so he mourned for 3 years, then took over and did great things. See, it's not just a rule, it's cultural valuing rights, filial piety, but it also shows kingly power. Back then wasn't all-powerful like Qin Shi Huang later on. So the author wraps up. From this, Shang king's power seemed not totally complete, meaning from these records, Shang rulers weren't super centralized. They were limited by systems and rights, especially on inheritance and transitions. Nobles, officials, and the prime minister played big roles, even influencing politics. Okay, let's keep reading. Besides that, what we can really examine from Shang times is mostly their frequent capital moves. As for ups and downs in rule, the Shiji isn't detailed but gives a rough idea. Here's a summary. Taijia, cultivated virtue, all vassals returned to yin, people were at peace. Yongji yin ways declined, some vassals didn't show up. Dawu yin revived, vassals returned. Zhongding moved to Ao. He Danjia lived in Xiang. Yin declined again. Zhu Yi moved to Xing. Yin revived. Yang Jia from Zhongding on, they skipped the legitimate heir and set up various disciples. Disciples fought, replacing each other. Chaos for 9 generations. No vassals came to court. Pan Gang crossed the Yellow River south, ruled from Bo. Yin ways revived, vassals came to court. Xiao Xin Yin declined again. Wu Ding cultivated virtue and governed, the world was happy, Yin revived. Di Jia indulged in excess, Yin declined again. Wu Yi left Bo, lived north of the river. Di Yi Yin declined more. Di Yi's son was Zhou Fib. In 1898-99, turtle shells and animal bones were found north of Shaotun in Anyang County, Henan. Some had writing on them. Archaeologists say it's the Yin ruins from the Shiji Jiangyu Benji, maybe where Wu Yi ruled. Lots of people have studied Shang history and systems from this, writing books and theories, but there are fakes mixed in the oracle bones, and research isn't thorough yet, so the findings aren't set in stone. For Shang, politics and teachings from reliable texts, old books often say Yin was plain, while Zhou was refined, showing the vibe then was simpler than Zhou. Material culture wasn't as advanced either. Also, Shang land management was called the assistance method. It divided fields into public and private. Public field yields went to the public. Private ones were fully the owners, but people helped farm the public fields without taxing privates, hence assistance. This was a step up from Zaya's tribute method. The last bit doesn't say much. The author just touches on a key archaeological find, the Yin ruins, which is what we call the Shaotun site in Anyang today. This place is a huge deal because, think about it, we used to say Xia, Shang, Zhou were the legit dynasties, but Xia's existence is still debated without hard proof. And before Yin ruins, Shang was kinda half legend too. But once they dug this up, it turned Shang from myth into solid history. The discovery happened early 20th century, starting when herbal medicine sellers found these inscribed dragon bones. They were grinding them up for meds. Then scholars spotted, hey, these marks aren't patterns, they're writing. Boom, academia exploded, and turns out it's ancient script on turtle shells and Bones Oracle bone script. Imagine, it's not just a few articles or steles, it's tens or hundreds of thousands of pieces, packed with records of divinations, sacrifices, wars, hunts, throne successions, weather, a whole social system on record. When Lou Simeon wrote this, Oracle bone studies were still new, with lots of fakes slipping in, and yeah, that's true. In those early digs, prices skyrocketed, so antique dealers started faking them, even carving fake script on cow bones to sell as real. Plus, archaeology standards were spotty back then, and cross-checking with texts wasn't complete, so it was a mess. But now, it's totally different. Oracle bone research has been going for over a century. Especially since China's reform and opening up, there are dedicated institutes, like at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, Tsinghua, Peking University, Fudan, and more. They've compiled catalogs like Jiagu Wen Heji, Yinshi Kui Bian, Yinshi Yi Kun, and so on. Now, there are 5,000 or 6,000 sorted inscription texts, super organized, which are for sacrifices, divinations, throne stuff. They reveal a full political and social setup. But let's be real, Oracle bone studies are far from done. First, the texts are damaged, bad some shards or tiny fragments, hard to piece together. Second, it's ancient script. Lots of characters aren't fully deciphered, and interpretations differ. Third, Shang's systems, rites, and kinship were totally different from later ones, so reconstructing is tough. Experts call Oracle bone studies a half-open black box you can get in, but progress is slow. Back to the king's order. Let's go over what Lu lays out. From Tang to King Zhou de Xin, about 30 kings we can confirm today. First is Tang, also called Da Yi Tang. He's the founder, overthrowing Xia Ji's tyranny. That Yi is from the heavenly stems like Jia, Yi, Bing, Ding, added after death as a sacrificial name, not his birth name. How'd that happen? Later, folks added them for memorials and sacrifices, based on posthumous titles or temple order. These names are on oracle bones, key for identifying kings today. Next is Tating Tang's son, but he died young, never ruled. So it went to Wei Bing, then Zhongren. These two weren't Tang's direct sons, but brothers, or clan kin. This brother succeeds brother was typical, showing early kingship wasn't super stable. Then it looped back to Taijia, Tang's grandson. You see, early Shang inheritance wasn't rigid father to son. It had flexibility, like family rotation. After that, Woding, Taigang, Zhaojia, Yongji, Taiwu, Zhongding, Weiren, He Danjia, Zhu Yi, Zhuxin, Wojia, Zuding, Nangang, Yangjia, Pangang, Shaoxin, Shaoyi, Wuding, Zhugang, Zhujia, Linjin, Gangding, Wuyi, Wending, Diyi, Dixin. These names sound like tongue twisters, but each has a story. Like Taiwu was a wise king, big on farming and sacrifice rites. Zhu Yi and Zhu Xin had achievements too. Pangang is key because he did a big move, relocated the capital from Yan, around modern Shandong, to Yin, aka Anyang. That shift marked late Shang, and Pangang became a revival king. Most oracle bones are from after him, showing later rule emphasized records and sacrifices. Then Wu Ding, super famous, Shang's peak, ruled about 50 years, great accomplishments. His queen, Fu Hao, was a legendary female general and priestess. Her tomb yielded tons of bronzes, jades, oracle bones, even Wu Ding's sacrificial inscriptions for her. Fu Hao's tomb proves women had high status in early Chinese society. Next up, Zhu Gang, Zhu Ji, Lin Jin, Gang Ding, Wu Yi, Wen Ding, Di Yi, and finally, Di Xin, aka the infamous King Zhou from movies and shows like Investiture of the Gods, portrayed as cruel and tyrannical. Whether he was really like that is unclear. Media exaggerates, of course. You might notice these names often have heavenly stems, Jia, Yi, etc. Not a coincidence, they're temple or sacrificial names used in rituals, inscribed on bones to honor ancestors, like Di Yi or Di Xin. Those are posthumous, not birth names. But the coolest thing? After studying oracle bones, we found the Shiji, king names and order mostly match up. Imagine how amazing Sima Qian was. Alright, that's this section. The book's Shang content stops here, but I think it's way too skimpy. Let's add some recent historical materials. First, detail these 30-ish kings. Since Shang inheritance was special sometimes, father-son, sometimes brothers, so we'll clarify that. Also, spotlight the famous ones. Then, focus on archaeological finds, especially Shang capitals. You know, they move like 8 times early and 5 late, so we'll introduce what digs have revealed. Finally, dive deep on oracle bones, because you can't talk Shang history without them. That's it for today. Thanks, everyone.